Welcome back to Thrive and Rise with Tiffany. Today's conversation is not just important, it's urgent. Because what we're about to talk about is not a coincidence, it's not accidental, and it's not new. It's a system. What we call the school to prison pipeline is a national pattern where children, disproportionately Black and brown, are pushed out of classrooms and into the criminal justice system. And the data proves it. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, students of color are twice as likely to be referred to law enforcement or arrested in school compared to their peers. Black students make up about 15% of enrollment, but over 30% of school-related arrests. Let that sink in. And it starts early. Research shows that strict school discipline policies like suspension don't just impact behavior. They increase the likelihood of incarceration later in life by 15 to 20%. That's not discipline, that's direction. And when you dig deeper, Black students are suspended at 3.5 times the rate of white students. Millions of students attend schools with police presence but no counselors, shifting support into surveillance, and exclusionary discipline continues to funnel vulnerable youth directly into the justice system instead of into opportunity. This is not about individual failure. This is about systemic design. Let's be clear, that's not a behavior problem, that's a system problem, and it starts early. School suspensions, something many people see as discipline, can actually become a turning point. Research shows they significantly increase the likelihood of students entering the juvenile justice system and falling behind academically. And once that door opens, it rarely closes easily, because students who are suspended or expelled are far more likely to drop out, and those who drop out are significantly more likely to be incarcerated later in life. That's no coincidence. That's a pipeline. And here's where it gets even deeper. This system didn't appear overnight. Since the 1970s, incarceration in the United States has increased by over 700%, with Black Americans making up a disproportionate share of those in prison. And many experts trace part of that rise directly back to zero tolerance, school policies, over-policing in schools, and lack of resources in communities. So when we talk about the pipeline, we're not just talking about schools. We're talking about underfunded communities, over-policed environments, untreated trauma, and systems that punish before they understand. And right here in places like Detroit, where resilience is strong, but resources have not always been, these patterns are not theoretical, they are lived. Because when a child is suspended instead of supported, when trauma is criminalized instead of treated, when behavior is punished instead of understood, we are not educating, we are preparing them for a system that was never built to protect them. And today, we are breaking that down. Not just the statistics, not just the problem, but the stories, the pain behind it, and the truth within it. Not just the system, but the solutions beyond it. And today we have voices who didn't just study the system, they lived in it. I'm joined by three powerful change makers. Demetrius Knuckles, a community organizer, speaker, and author of I'm Still Healing and So Are You, a memoir of survival, decent, and sovereign healing, who spent 28 years incarcerated after being sentenced as a teen, and now fights to dismantle systemic injustice and empower returning citizens. Shawanna Vaughn, founder of Silent Cry, born into incarceration and formerly incarcerated herself, now leading national conversations on trauma, reentry, and what she calls post-traumatic prison disorder. Marcus Kelly, a human rights advocate and founder of the Change Up, who turned his wrongful incarceration into a mission for justice, dignity, and systemic reform. This is not just a discussion, this is a wake-up call. So if you're ready to understand the pipeline, challenge the system, and be a part of the solution, let's get into it.
People ask all the time, who the heck is low-cost airlines? Well, we're not just one airline. When you're talking to us, you're talking to everyone. We are the discount supermarket for all airline tickets. Plus, we have all the airlines and always have the best prices. American, Delta, United, plus all the specialized international airlines, and a lot more. And we make it easy. We guarantee you'll talk to a live human in 60 seconds. You can have the rates you need and have your trip booked in 5 minutes. Now, how cool is that? And remember, when you're talking to us, it's like talking to every single airline available with one fast phone call. All you need to do is call and find the best prices to fly wherever it is you want to go. So are you ready? Call Low Cost Airlines right now.
Call 855-662-0261. That's 855-662-0261. Again, 855-662-0261.
Hi, I'm the tax lady. Do you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS? Then listen carefully. You may be able to pay the IRS less and save thousands of dollars because right now there are special government tax programs for people like you who owe the IRS. We can even help you if you have unfiled tax returns. And if you qualify, you'll pay less money to the IRS or state. Stop worrying about wage garnishments and bank levies and call the number on the screen right now for a free tax review. We know what you're going through. We help good people like you every day pay the IRS or state less taxes all the time. If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, call now for your free, no-obligation consultation with a tax professional. Don't fight the IRS alone. Call the Tax Ladies team today.
Call the Tax Lady at 877-335-7471. Call now.
So for those who are unfamiliar with the school to prison pipeline, can you guys explain for us what is it and how early does it begin?
For me, classroom to prison pipeline was almost kind of setting people up for a system of imprisonment later. I believe it starts really in elementary school. I know if you ain't reading at a certain level by the third grade, they already kind of know that you're on that pathway to prison. And you're going to speak a little bit more about that. But that's all I have with that as far as
it's factually the third grade. The prison system in the United States builds prison from third grade test scores. Yeah. They project how many prisons are going to be built and where they're going to be by where the test scores are the lowest for children that are in the third grade. And that is a chattel slavery pipeline. And if we understand where education came from, we would never send our children to school. If we actually understood where public education, the origin came from, we would understand that it was never meant to educate African American or minority children in the first place. And so we as a community are doing our children a disservice by sending them to an institutional place of racism and that was not built or designed for them.
So what are the foundations that the education system was built on?
racism and white supremacy. And this is why we had to fight for Brown versus Board of Education. And this is why Ruby Bridges exist, right? This is why she is famous. But this is unacceptable, because before there was integration, I promise you, segregated schools were better for our children. Church house education was better for. We've been the longest homeschoolers in the world, and we shifted to assimilate into a system that doesn't want us. And so it has now become a prison to pipeline, an education to prison pipeline, because it wasn't designed for us to be there. And so now we have the Betsy DeVoe, who's created these charter schools who are really mini juvenile detention facilities. Mm-hmm. Walk in straight lines, hold your heads up, uniforms. Those are prison outfits. Like I'm like, this school is not democracy. This is a dictatorship on your way to prison. And I'm very confused why we would think that a system designed to fail to educate would suddenly care. And we talk about Title I schools. They're all primarily African American schools. And so the other day, if we watched the story in Texas, they're literally cutting out 12 schools in minority places. If anybody is watching the news, and the parents and the people are going, but they've already made the decisions. People make decisions and then they inform.
And this issue is definitely a systemic issue. Let me ask you guys, what role do schools discipline policies, and what role does policing play in this pipeline?
Well, if you, and I'm talking about it not just from my experience, but just actually going into my old high school. I went to the old high school now, and it's like you locked in there, and they had the police walking all through the schools. There was some children got into a small fight in the lunchroom, and they were taking one child, the police was taking one child on, and I videotaped it, and taking another child another way, and they said, we have the perpetrator. And so they use language like perpetrator and things like that. And I'm like, so they replace hall monitors with police. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, and I'm telling you, I literally felt traumatized. Mm-hmm. I actually felt like I was in a Jackson quarantine waiting to get shipped off into whatever prison I was going. And that's like, that is a true, that's like it was a real experience for me. I had a flashback. And I looked at them like, so this is what you do in our children? So it's really the way they talk to you, the way they isolate you, the way, you know what I mean, how they write up your complaints or disciplinary actions. They write it up in a form of
like
writing a
police
complaint.
Report, yeah.
And I can remember.
And it follows that child.
All the way through life. And I know that for a fact because when I was in school and I was getting ready to be sentenced to prison, they talked about my school record. They talked about, he stayed in fights. He excited. They use words like excited, riots. He had all these things, and it's like
they created a case against.
They created a case against me before I was before I realized that this is what was happening. And I walked in there and I listened to this whole story they told about this young child. Myself, I was 16 years old at the time, and I went to prison. And so it's like. And just to piggyback on something you were saying, it was a activist. Her name is Wilma Mankill. So, right, she was a chief Cherokee activist, and during that time they was putting their children through border schools. They put indigenous children through border school to erase their language, erase their heritage, and erase all those things. And she said that if you control the child's education, then you can control their future, right? And when you look at You know what I'm saying? And some, when you look at what's happening now with the destruction of all the schools in Pontiac right now, all my schools is gone. You know what I mean? And our literacy rates is disgusting, right? But we spend 56% of Pontiac's budget on what we call public safety. And we talking about the 1850s Fugitive Slave Act ideology of what public health and safety is. It was called law and order, and now it's public safety. But we spend 56% of that budget on jail and police, and only 10%, a minor 10% on our children. So we spend 5 times the money to incarcerate our children than we do to invest in them.
And that's nationally.
Classroom to prison pipeline.
Yeah. And that's national.
But y'all keep saying one thing. Y'all keep saying they doing this. They not doing nothing that we not letting them do. See, because if we know, and I'm telling you firsthand experience, if we know that that hall monitor who has now been replaced with a security guard, who now calls straight to the police, not to the principal, to the police. If we know all of this, and we know that they are indoctrinating our children in the beginning, when they always talk about 7 out of every 10 children, child will end up in prison. Well, this is a number that they indoctrinated us with. So now guess what we do? And I'm telling you firsthand experience, because I'm one of the people that fell victim to it. 7 out of, so now I get caught up in some of them, like, well, 7 out of 10 of us going anyway. See, I'm telling you me. This ain't a story I'm talking about somebody else. I'm talking about my story. So now, when I think back, and the craziest thing is I was riding on 6 Mile in Beach Daily a few weeks ago. And I just happened to pass this place called Methodist Children's Village. Well, it ain't called Methodist Children's Village no more, but it was Methodist Children's Village. I was there in 83 and 84. So I go to the place. I go up in the place. I'm like, did this place used to be called blah, 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 blah? They're like, yeah. I said, wow. I said, I was here in 83, 84.
Wow.
I mean, my whole body. I mean, it was just something came over me. And I'm talking to the 2 ladies at the desk. And they was like, what's your name? And I gave my name and all this and that. And I said, wow, I was in South Frothingham. Is that still the name? They said, yeah. I said, South Frothingham, North Frothingham, Henderson House, Fairmount House. They said, yeah, all in the same. The gym right there. Yeah. They said, just come back and we'll take you on a tour through here. Do you do any speaking? Because we would love for you to come in. And I'm saying this to say that I spoke to them 2 ladies, and I was telling them about the system. They are a part of the system. But a lot of people that work there have that compassion I'm talking about. Because I had some staff members that really loved us as children and treated us like their own child. So they was teaching us stuff that they didn't want that system to grab our brain. They grabbed it and taught us some stuff. And I told the lady then, I said, yeah, these type of systems here are the gateway to prison. Because these systems here go so unchecked by staff members who know what's going on in those schools, that's indoctrinating us to become criminals, labeling us criminals with this language, because that's where I got my first title, close to developing a deep-seated character disorder from. I was there. That's the exact, I remember it like it's yesterday. They diagnosed me as close to developing a deep-seated character disorder. Do you know what that means? I had to find out what it means in this day. And it means that I had disassociate personality, multiple personality, all of this.
That's deep.
That's what they diagnosed me as back then.
That's deep.
I never exhibited none of that. You know what the problem was? I didn't receive the proper attention that I was supposed to receive from the adults around me and from the system that said it was in place to help the parents with welfare system, all that type of stuff. But again, that system wasn't meant to help us anyway.
Let me ask you, how does trauma show up in young people before they ever encounter the justice system?
I would say that trauma shows up in your ACEs and your adverse life experiences, right? Trauma is a monster. Trauma is the foster care system. Trauma is poverty. Poverty is your mother dying. Trauma is being born in prison. Trauma is deep, right? We talk about trauma and we talk about it in a way, I said, but in real life, being born to a mother who's addicted to crack cocaine is trauma. Because the side effects are as we play out in society. And so I think as black people, being born black in America is traumatic. And we don't address our traumas. And I think for me, there are moments I still show up as a fragile 9-year-old. There are moments I show up as a 15-year-old who is broken. There are moments I show up as the little girl who was sentenced in a courtroom that was 17 years old, that is not an adult. And they're saying property transfer, right? Because I'm a foster kid. And they're saying state property transferred to the Department of Corrections. And they never said my name. They did an interstate compact transfer of property. The trauma is never being human. So when you go to school and they know you're a foster kid, they don't treat you well either, because they don't have an expectation for you to be there, to learn. They have an expectation that they're making a prison for me already. And they fail to teach. School is a failure to thrive for kids that are failure to thrive, because the teachers do not feel like they're going to invest what they're going to invest in Susie and Matthew. They're not going to do that. And so I feel like some of us were counted out before we ever got a chance. And that's the trauma.
Yeah.
Life never counted us in.
Yeah.
What was and the question was, how does trauma show up, right? So I'm gonna go all the way back to where I was telling you about where Ms. Mansfield said that controlling the education, you control the child's future or whatever. When we think about the implementation of the 13th Amendment, right, in the Michigan Article 1, subsection 9, where it says we abolishing slavery except for punishment for a crime. That was the genesis of what they call the monetary incentive to incarcerate. And so, well, we can convict people of a crime, we can put them back on plantations, we can lease them out to farms. Today they call it, they don't call it convict leasing as much, they call it work programs, right? So why should I negotiate with, or with collective bargaining with unions when I can just put it in prison, make them do it for free, and then tell you that immigrants are taking your jobs? You know what I mean? So the way that trickles down then is, you know, it almost, if you can say criminal to somebody, you almost dehumanize them to where you are deserving of anything. You reduce you to property, which is what the 1850s Fugitive Slave Act was. You go on and retrieve property and protect property. So the way it shows up in education, and I'm gonna show you how it hit me, but the way it shows up in our educational system is this. If I can teach you then that slavery had been abolished, then if I told you today that it's not, you probably wouldn't believe me. You'll tell me what the 13th Amendment says, and if I tell you that the Dred Scott ruling has never been overturned, that it's still law, the 3/5 of a person and all those things, you'll probably be like, well, the 13th Amendment made that not and a void, except for punishment for a crime. See, most people don't think about those. So now we're talking about our educational system. We had 7 rec centers in Pontiac where we had tutors, all kind of stuff. We had Pontiac Central, Pontiac Northern, to one of the greatest schools, you know what I'm saying, in Michigan. And we had a bunch of elementary schools. All of them plummeted. We don't have anything. But what they did invest in is reopening prisons, inflict ICE on the community, and now we opening up new facilities, packing them with more people, putting them to work for free, yet, you know what I'm saying, and pretty much ignoring people that look like me, our education system. Because if we don't know that slavery exists and these things, and we really believe it is true, and immigrants are taking our jobs, we hate them too. You know what I mean? Not even realize that if they come for your neighbor at night, they're gonna come for you in the morning. Now the way it showed up for me in that system is now you have corporations that exploits impoverished communities by paying you just enough where you got to come back tomorrow. So my single mother at the time was raising, it was 4 of us. And because she had to work 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, she had to believe that we could take ourselves to school and back. So we had a babysitter. I think my babysitter was she was about 17 or 18. My babysitter was molesting me. I was 4 years old.
Oh my God.
Yes. So I'm going to school every day after being molested, you know what I'm saying, or being molested by my babysitter, not feeling like a normal kid at 4 years old. I'm in elementary school. And it wasn't until I told my mother what was actually happening, and she, you know what I'm saying, whooped the girl, and then her abuser came and abused her, and I watched my mother defend herself from her abuser and killed her abuser. And I watched the news come in, I watched the police take my mother away from me. So now you're talking about a child who just said, Mom, I was being molested, and watched the police take my mother away from me. So now I'm motherless, you know what I'm saying, and I'm still having to go to school, still having to wear, because as a young black man, as a child, we were taught because of the slavery days that we ain't allowed to feel. So I gotta hold these things in, not talk about it, and I gotta wear that every day. And I wore that for a long time. We never talked about it, you know what I'm saying? She was only gone for 10 months, but it felt like 10 years. And then I watched and then myself got beat up by the same police officers when I was 11. And I was through in jail at 11.
Oh my
yes.
God.
So those been my run-in. So when we talk about what we don't know what that child been through before he came to school, nobody knew why I was so quiet and why I was quick to fight all the time, or why I was scared of police officers.
And you were dealing with trauma on top of trauma, on top of trauma, on top of trauma.
Yes.
Let me ask you guys, why are the black and brown communities disproportionately impacted?
Because we're the biggest targets. Like, here again, Brown versus Board of Education. We weren't meant for school. It was not meant for us. And unfortunately, people get angry when I say segregation was the best thing for us. Integration was the worst design to ever happen. Martin, I'm sorry. You had a bad idea. We are always trying to assimilate into people, places, and things that do not want us. And there can be no good outcome when we're at places and institutions that are structurally racist, that are structurally set up to kick our children's ass. We send our children to a place because we think we have to, but we don't. There is homeschool, there is alternatives, and we don't have to. Because sending our children to public school is walking them into baby juvenile detention facilities. Because why is it that the schools in Detroit, Pontiac, Saginaw, they have police and security? Birmingham, Ferndale, they don't look the same. They're not treated the same. And so this disproportionate pipeline is half of our own fault, because we will not pull our children out of a place that will not correct itself. It's like prison. We're waiting for the Michigan Department of Corrections to actually live up to its mission statement. Y'all, Detroit Public School doesn't live up to its mission statement. The fact that I've looked at the title schools, they're in black neighborhoods.
You know, it's easy to say, let's just keep our kids at home. In Detroit, they did a study years ago, and the illiteracy rate was over 30%. The functional illiteracy rate was over 60%. And then we know that a lot of trauma happens, unfortunately, at home for a lot of our children. So for some children, school is a safety net.
It is.
However, we do know that there are a multitude of issues in our education system and systemically.
But I'm not saying keep them home. Why are we not? If we have watched charter schools pop up all over the country, like I'm from New York, we got a charter school on every block. We got a charter school more than we got a public school, right? I'm in Michigan and I've seen all the educators on the planet. Y'all got more teachers than you probably got nurses here. Why can't African Americans create our own schools? Why? Why can't we create charter schools? We understand the problem.
There are problems. There are many issues with charter schools as well, though.
But why can't we create our own schools?
But
I understand there's problems in all of it. But if we're saying disproportionately our children are affected in this adverse problem, then we need to be creating the school. I'm from New York, Brooklyn. The Jews got their own school, their own hospital, their own library, their own ambulance, right? They don't care. They thriving on their own in the midst of the melting pot. They still got their own stuff. We're clear about the problem. The solution is to go create our own. Whether it's charter school, private school, public school. Why can't we go create our own school? Because I don't have any more tolerance or any more anything. We have too many educators. And listen, we could go back to these empty churches because them things is useless and they're empty. And we can run schools because they're not doing anything 6 days a week. We can go run school in churches.
let me go back to where the trauma show up for children that I know personally grew up that way. And speaking of myself first, it show up in our anger. It show up in our silence. It show up in us acting tough because something happened for me to feel like I gotta act tough now. Mm-hmm. It show up in our young girls putting all the, want to wear the high heels in elementary school. It show up in every aspect of our behavior, and it's every aspect of our behavior that's now being criminalized. Why black and brown? Because we're still slaves. We're still considered 3/5 of human beings.
You said a word.
So you're not even in our league. So I'm going to treat you like the Constitution said I can treat you, like a slave, because you're not in our league. We are 5/5. You are 3/5. You're not on our level. So therefore, you always are a target. Therefore, I don't have to teach you what I teach him. Therefore, my schools in Ferndale, Sterling Heights, Warren, and everywhere else don't have to look like y'all's school. Matter of fact, y'all don't even deserve a school. That's 1955. Brown versus
Board of Education.
Board of Education. So now, Incher don't have a school. Sure Pontiac schools are extinct.
Highland Park don't have a school.
Highland Park schools are extinct.
We don't have
Primary black communities all throughout the United States have schools that are extinct.
Highland Park has, I believe,
One.
K through 8 charter schools.
One.
Inkster schools were annihilated.
So now when you take all of this into account, you have to go back to what's going on. The man keeps telling us and showing us who we are because he's telling us who he is. When he say, don't teach black education in our schools. Not our schools, in their schools. Because those schools are not our schools. Our schools were in the basement. Our schools were in the church basement, at home. Those were our schools. Now, I'm not saying that we have to all go back and leave that alone and do this, because some children find solace in going to these schools. But that goes back to that word assimilation.
And I'm not opposed to starting our own schools. There have been a handful of schools that have been started. My great uncle was Henry Clay Yerger.
Oh,
and
wow.
and he started he was big in education in Arkansas. He was included in Bill Clinton's memoirs, and he created a whole system basically for African Americans, and African American educators came from other states to be trained by him because he was so good. Arkansas used his system as a model.
Wow.
We can do great things. We have a teacher shortage nationally and in Michigan. And I believe about 90% of our educators here in Michigan are Caucasian. There's, in comparison to our counterparts, there are very few African American teachers. So how do we even get more people into the field, so we can get them into the classroom?
You know what? Pay them better.
Could I say this real quick, Mark? If I criminalized everything about you, you don't even fit the mold of teacher. So you would never get a degree. Because I have made sure that everything you do, I'm going to criminalize. You got a felon on your record now. You can't become a teacher. You got caught smoking weed. You can't become a teacher. So now, once we do this, because they dropped all this stuff in our neighborhoods, the guns, the drugs, et cetera, yes, we take our part and take responsibility, because they didn't shoot the gun, we shot the gun. They didn't put the needle in our vein, we did that part. So once all of these components become in place, and you got this record now, you are no longer qualified to be a teacher. You can go to school all you want to. So now you boxed out. So who become boxed in? Them right there.
But you know what? Even with that, right? We'll pay the basketball player to dribble pigskin. But we won't pay the person who educated them enough to do it.
And that's why I'm glad we're there. And that was a great question. So first I'm gonna start from here. You just seen just recently the United Nations, 123 nations said basically America owes reparations for the transatlantic slave trade, and the only people who was against it was America, Israel, and some other one.
Of course.
So the way we start would actually be with reparations, right? With education. But we the only race in the United States that don't get reparations. But when we come back to this, in my community, and I can only speak to Pontiac right now, Pontiac is, we call that the center of the universe, right? We are smack dead in the middle of the fourth richest county in the United States, I believe. Smack dead in the middle. Everything goes through
Oakland
Pontiac.
County.
Oakland County. Now, we have the lowest paid teachers. And our teachers have been working in Pontiac with no contract for 3 years. Wow. And their average salary, I forget, Ebony Sims. Shout out to Ebony Sims. Ebony Sims been working in Pontiac schools for 19 years, and she's only making $23 an hour. That's what she topped out at.
Oh my.
So most people in my community is like, it's really no career in education.
No.
But if I can become a police officer, they starting off at like $60,000, $70,000 a year. So they spend more money to incarcerate our children than they do to educate them.
Yeah.
And why would I educate you when I can get more money off you if I put you in prison? Think about this. They get what, $150,000 a year for juveniles to sit in a juvenile facility. They get $53,000 a year to sit them in prison. You know what I'm saying? Now the corporations, we got over 4,100 corporations invested in prison. So we got McDonald's, the Costco's, the everybody. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have to pay you health care. We don't have to pay you not even minimum wage.
We got slave labor.
We don't have to, no days off. You know what I'm saying? No OSHA protections, no Social Security points going to Social Security. So I don't care about
Educating you.
No, hold on. It's gonna get there too. I don't care about collective bargaining. We make more money off black and brown bodies sitting them in prison. And so when I look at this little child, I know 1 out of every 3 young black or brown child is going to have a criminal record. So that automatically, either 1 out of every 3 is getting boxed out of the education system anyway, because you can't be a teacher with a criminal record. Mm-hmm. Now, what I believe is, I don't really believe so much of of taking children out of school. But what I do believe is none of us have a voice at that table. So when they pass in policies, education and things like that, they don't include the people that's affected by those policies. They only think about Julie or Betty and Stuart. They're not thinking about Marcus or young brother here or this young lady here. They're not thinking about us and what we are going through, because Julie and them ain't going through it. And so at the end of the day, the problem that we are having in our system is we never had nobody that looked like us, that struggled like us, that know what it feels.
So can you stop? Was I on camera? Okay, good. Okay.
Oh.
I mean, but you can't do that during a show. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But they just don't have nobody that look like us to advocate for us to sit at them tables. So naturally, in every system I've seen throughout school, they teach us how to work for people. They teach them how to run companies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, we're gonna teach the little brown guy to come work for your corporation, and we're gonna teach you how to run daddy's corporation. Mm-hmm. So that's the dynamic. Mm-hmm. But when I have somebody that looks like you sitting on our school superintendent board, then we can have that conversation of, this is what it actually looks like in Pontiac. This ain't Birmingham. This ain't all those beautiful cities that y'all spend all this money in. This is Pontiac that has the lowest literacy rates, but gets the highest per capita for student. They get almost $32,000 per student. They still can't read. So y'all gotta forgive me.
But you know
I'm about
to cry. But Marcus, you said some really important things. But when we talk about how to get teachers more money, right? We got a legislature that is right now passing a budget, a state budget. We got a governor who talks about roads. I done heard roads since I've been here. Roads and bridges. And the roads are horrible. We talk about the lottery and the money, and we don't know what that's doing. But
so the lottery, I'll tell you what that's doing.
Yeah.
The lottery is 7 days. It covers 7 days of education.
My God.
So the formula does not necessarily help schools, but a lot of people misunderstand it and think that because they said the lottery funding, it means that there's this big lump sum that's coming out. It's 7 days worth of funding. So, and there are people at the table that are advocating, but there are a lot of people at the table that are not.
But you know what? So now we have to ask, right? As organizers and social activists, how do we help the teachers who are raising our children?
Shaping their future.
Because in real life, our children go to a place 8-point-something hours a day. And if you're not being paid a decent wage to educate my child to be the greatest human being they can be, America is failing. Where our teachers are now going overseas to China, where a teacher is royalty. In other countries, teachers are royalty, because we're not understanding the price of education, right? And you talked about it's not a lot of black teachers. So if somebody's paying me $23 and I got a college loan debt, I'm not gonna go be a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm not. That just sounds crazy. Because
well, there's good news. So in Michigan now, you can actually go to school for free to become a teacher and get stipends.
And this is good.
This is very good.
And they need to really publicize that, and that's great, right? But if I'm still making $23 an hour and that's where I'm capped out, I have children too, I got bills, that's not going to work out. Because I can go to McDonald's, I can go to Walmart in real life.
So that would be a different program.
Yeah.
So for support staff in schools, so if you're working in a school, if you're a bus driver, if you're working and you're in the kitchen, if whatever capacity, you're a substitute teacher, you're a parapro, and you decide that you want to go back to school to become a teacher, an educator, then they have, in some districts, including Detroit, they have what's called a Grow Your Own program.
Okay.
So they will help you to become a certified teacher. There are things out there, but like you said, people don't always know. People aren't always informed, and we really have to work harder to get the information out, especially in our community.
It's a lot of opposition, you know, because you can speak about those who, like you just said, there are some of us that's at the table, but there are some of us that's at the table. It's a lot of them that's at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time your voice reaches the people who signed the paperwork, everything is lost in translation. Or they wasn't listening in the first place. Meanwhile, we give our kids, our children, over to a racist system, a demonic system, a miseducation system, and we give our children over to them for 12 years to program our children, to program them. So they can program them the right way, so the system work the right way, so they can know that they are enslaved and know that by the time you turn 17, you're going to have some encounter with the police. And then hopefully by the time you're 17, you find you a permanent residence with them. And that's what we're doing when we give our children over to them for 12 years and we don't have a voice at the table to try to orchestrate a proper dialogue with our children so they can become righteous young men and women who does not depend on Eurocentric education, a system that's meant and put in place to put us in prison in the first place.
Demetrius, let me ask you, you were incarcerated as a teenager. What did your experience teach you about the system?
I literally reflect, I just rolled past my elementary school too. Mr. Stevens, and Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan was the principal, he was the white guy. And then Mr. Stevens was the assistant principal, the black guy. Mr. Sullivan played the good guy. Mr. Stevenson played the strict guy. And I didn't understand why till now. Because Mr. Stevens had to assimilate himself in a system that wasn't meant for us to grow in. We become the flower that grows from the concrete. Mm-hmm. So when I think about my prison time, and when I was in prison, I literally would I thought about my education. And when I went to prison, and I dropped out of school at 11th grade at Incarcerated High School, and I mean, I did all the schoolwork for the whole year, got A's, B's, all that old stuff. I went to prison a couple years later. I took that, whatever that test is.
The GED?
No, not that one yet. I took that other test, and it said that I had a 7th grade education.
Was it the state test?
The
yeah, whatever test they have you come through. Oh. But imagine that. Imagine that. I'm in 11th grade. I'm thinking I'm doing great. I'm in 11th grade. I know I be acing all the schoolwork. All the girls copy off my schoolwork. I wasn't the guy to copy off theirs. Everybody copying off mine because I'm doing so good. And I got a 7th grade education.
Wow. So what does that say about the education that system, that school district was giving in comparison to where
they teach a different curriculum to us than they teach to them. Mm-hmm. The curriculum they teach to us puts a roof over our head to where we can't really stand up. We're going to always have our back arched because we can't stand tall with the education
tests are biased. So if you use a particular term or word, just like, say, for instance, in the Midwest, we say pop, but in the South, they say soda. So if you're up here, or let's vice versa, if it's a test down there and they put pop on there, they might not understand what pop is supposed to mean,
Yeah, what that
right?
mean? Right.
So that becomes bias because we're using different terminologies, and
Yes.
and they know it.
And they know it.
I would see Pontiac was different. Like, well, in my experience in our schools, we had some of the best schools. I can honestly say that. And I don't know if you remember in 1971 where they was integrating
No, we
Pontiac
don't remember.
schools. Well, it's a part of Pontiac's history.
Go ahead.
When they was integrating Pontiac schools, this was the Elbrook Patterson area. He was a lawyer.
Okay,
at the
right,
time.
right, yep.
And the Ku Klux Klan had bombed all of our school buses. And Elbrooks Patterson represented the Klan, and which got a wink from Nixon, and that's how he got his rise to power in Oakland County. But here's the thing. We had teachers that came from the civil rights movement. You know, so we had people like Coach King, we had Miss King, we had Mr. Rice, we had them, you know what I'm saying? So coming through my school, we had really good teachers, but we had the racist white ones too. And it was the racist white ones that criminalized me every time they actually saw me. You know, you're gonna be dead before this, you're gonna be that. But I have my civil rights teachers like getting them books, you know what I'm saying? And you will need an education. But here's another thing around that. Teachers can only really teach you what they know and what they were taught, right? It's up to us to take that a step further. Because my teachers, even my pro-black civil rights teachers, taught me that slavery was ended. And we celebrated. Even today, when you go out, they gave us Juneteenth. And the biggest trick in the world was to make us all believe that we is free. You get to choose your own master, whether it's Democrat or Republican. But you're still a slave. So if we don't know this, and like now, if you think about the whole process they started, when you're talking about the classroom, the drug laws when they passed back then, the Reagan era. Then you talked about, then we go on moving forward to the No Child Left Behind. So kids going through school can't read and write. Then we talking about, and not all, but some. Then you talking about, you know what I'm saying, taking cursive out of schools. Now you can't even read it. And the Constitution was written in cursive. So now you got to believe what I tell you that the Constitution says.
Because you can't read it.
You know what I'm saying? Because you can't read it.
But
so now you got to believe what I tell you. So just like we were taught and indoctrinated in us that slavery was ended with the 13th and Michigan Article 1, subsection 9, now they are being told the same thing, and now they can't even read to see that it's still there. We was able to find it out because we've seen the rest of it where say, except for punishment for a crime, which started the black codes and so on and so forth. So when it comes down to our education then, like what the sister was saying, what Wilma was saying is, if you can control the education, you can control the child's future. So when we're talking about something as serious as our system, our educational system, shaping our child's future, it's really all about what do you want your child to know and understand. Because sometimes as parents, we have to take it a step further too and be able to advocate for our children. But if we don't know that these systemic things exist, or if we are acquiescing it because I got to go to work, so school is like a daycare for me right now. You know what I'm saying? So now,
is the babysitter.
Then we are also acquiescing our own demise.
Absolutely.
Because, you know what I'm saying? Because now you have the tools and you do know, and if you do know and you still don't do it, you're wrong than the person who created it.
But you know what, Marcus? I'm talking to parents, and they're sending these kids to school because, you know, we had the 3 jobs and poverty, and I remember, like, we had big mamas, we had nanas, right? And so school was for how many ever hours it was, but I got educated at home. I got educated at other people's houses.
And Demetrius, I wanted to finish where we were. How did being sentenced young shape your identity and your future?
I was given life without parole. I was given essentially a death sentence for a crime that occurred that I did not commit, for a crime that occurred when I was 17. And being convicted of that crime, and I tell this story, 1999, October 2nd, 1999, I was 26 years old. I had been in prison like 8 years at that time, or something like that. I can't even remember. And a light popped on in my head. I was in a hole. And I said, wow, man, I got to get out of prison. My mother had already passed. My mother told me this when I was able to talk to her before she passed. She said, I don't care if I die in prison. I mean, she said she didn't care if I died if she died while I was in prison. She said, you got to focus on getting out. She said, that's got to be your focus. Don't worry about me. If I'm gone, I'm gone. You can't get me back anyway. October 2nd, 1999, I was in a hole. I'd been an egghead for a lot of years. And I'd been in a hole for like 7 years at that time. 7 years at that time. And the light popped on in my head. I said, man, I got to get out of prison. If I don't do something now, I'm dying in prison. And I'm not dying in prison. And I changed my life in that very moment, not the next day, not 2 days from now. I didn't say, well, I'm going to wait till next week to start doing this. I changed my life in that very moment. And when I decided to change my life, I'm going to tell you what God did to me. He ran a whole movie of my life back to me. I mean, I seen a whole movie from the time I was in that preschool right next door to my girlfriend right now. Her mother used to be my preschool, take care of me when I was in preschool or whatever, right next door to their house. I can go back there, and I remember when I first went to first grade at Marshall Elementary School, then I went to Grayland. I can remember the labels that they would put on me and my brothers because we was dirty. We came from the drug addict family. They put labels on us that we began to live up to and didn't know we was living up to them. And all of this played out in my mind October 2nd, 1999. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get all these people back. Not out of vengeance, but just out of my righteous behavior. And I changed my life because I realized all the trauma that I had suffered through. And I realized that it's a lot of people who didn't even make it. And I say this personally, but I don't say this spiritually. I shouldn't have made it. I shouldn't have made it because there's people who were far better off than me in society that didn't make it, but I made it. So now I said in October 2nd, 1999, I said, I'm getting out of prison. I said, I want to start an organization to pay homage to all those brothers and sisters, all my aunts who visited, my cousins, my cousin Tamika, my aunt Kathleen, Shirley, May, Renee, Diane, Glenda, Karen. All of these people came to visit me. Officer Baker, he with us right now in our ecosystem. Officer Taylor, grew up with him, he in our ecosystem. My girlfriend's brother. All of these people who poured something into me, all the Moors and Nation members. I said, I want to pay homage to these brothers because some of them brothers in there allowed me to stand on their shoulders to see a freedom that some of them may never see. And so a lot of them died off just since I've been out. But they allowed me, a guy who had life, they had life too, but they said, no, man, just stand on my shoulder. I want you to at least see it because it's something about you. And I never forget about them brothers. I tear up because some of them brothers never got a chance to see freedom on the outside. And I tell people, how could you trust me out here? But I'm telling you, that's my teacher right there. He been laid back in prison longer than me. He the one taught me, but you saying that you respect and honor me. You trust me out here. Trust my teacher, don't trust me. And they just let one of my teachers out after 50 years.
Wow.
He just got out. And I went to go see him. And I told him this whole story of one of the reasons why I decided to start a nonprofit, because he took me under his wing. He seen my trauma, he seen my pain, he heard my story. And he said, brother, I don't care about how crazy you is. I was crazy too. But somebody didn't throw me aside, ostracize me like the people in society did us. He said they took me under their wing and they taught me. And that's why I'm teaching you. And I told him this just recently. And so That's how I came full circle from prison, from my trauma as a youth to prison. I had to change my life. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this. I wrote my way out of prison. I literally wrote books, I wrote poetry, I rapped, I sung, I did it all. And I wrote books of poetry about freedom. I wrote books of my life story about freedom. It wasn't a prison story. I don't like prison stories. Prison stories is for prisoners.
We are the prisoners.
I write freedom stories. Mm-hmm. Freedom stories is for freedom fighters and people who respect freedom. And so I wrote a book called I'm Still Healing and So Are You. It wasn't called that. It was in prison when I wrote it, it was called These Pains. Because I said, don't nobody really understand my pains. Mm-hmm. And not to say that people wasn't going, you don't understand mine, I don't understand yours. It's not like mine is so unique or nothing. They're unique to me, but yours are unique to you. Mm-hmm. And so when I got out here, years later, people kept asking. So I wrote the book called I'm Still Healing and So Are You, which is available on Amazon. I'm Still Healing and So Are You. And then I wrote a program based off my book while I was in prison called Still Healing. And it's a poetry based, not poetry like that too, but we talking about the rhythm of life. Your actions, your behaviors, your behavior patterns. There's a rhythm to it. There's a rhythm to how you think, a rhythm to how you feel, you smell, you hear, you taste. And so I wrote a program that I'm trying to get back into prison. I'm trying to get into colleges, into jails and all of that. But to sum it all up like this here, my book, for example, I'm Still Healing and So Are You, and my program, Still Healing, sums up my life and the gift that I have to give to other people, because these are the tools that I use to fix me, and I'm not fixed. Because healing is a lifelong process. It's not a destination. Amen. And so I'm still going through it today.
Amen. Juan, the questions?
Oh,
Amen.
Juan sleep.
Shawanna, you talked about being born into incarceration. How does that reality impact generational cycles?
I come from generations of women in prison. And that impacts cycles because I said not my children. I remember doing my first bid in the county jail. I did a year flat. And I remember not being sad. My brother was there. My sister came to visit me. Like, it was crazy. And when I say visit, like, she caught a charge and came to stay. Like, my aunt was there. Like, my whole family was hanging. Like, it was crazy. I was like, oh, the year is over. And the crazy part was, I got to see my family. Like, that was probably the most me and my sister had talked in forever. Mm. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And I was like, what? When I remember I got out of the county jail for a year flat. I was 16. I came home, it was 17. It was almost my birthday. In 45 days, I caught another charge and was on a prison bus in 45 days.
Wow.
Because I came home and was like, oh, they throwing me a barbecue, but I'm still broke. Oh, this not gonna work out. And continued to plan robberies and continued to figure out how to eat. And when I got to prison, there was a lady named Bernice QB on the other side of the gate, and she was waiting for me. And I think the thing that changed my life, like, she called my name, my whole name. And I looked, and I got on the other side of the gate, and the guards was like, go with her. Oh, not with the people in the line? No, go with her? All right. So I went with her, and she was like, come on, I'm going to take you to my room. And I'm like, who are you? and she told me my mother's name. And she said, I've been waiting on you. I said, huh? She said, if you are your mother's daughter, I knew you would come to see me. I've been waiting on you.
Wow.
I said, she didn't call me into wealth. She didn't call me into good. That lady said, if you were your mother's daughter, you were gonna come see me, and I was waiting on you. I cried for weeks, because in that moment, she came to heal the broken little girl, and that, because that hit different. Because I don't really know my mother like she does. And the lady said, I was in CIW with your mother, and I was your mother's best friend, and I named you. That was crazy. And that became my prison mother.
Wow.
And she took me under her wing. She took me in her room, and she was in a lifer room. She got life sentence for $10 worth of crack on a 3 strikes California law. But if I didn't go to prison for anything else, I went to prison to heal my mama trauma. Because she was the mama that came to heal me.
Amen.
And she was like, can you read? Can you write? Are you smart? And I was like, maybe. I don't know. And she took me the next day to the library, and she got me books, and law books and regular books, and she was like, oh, you came here to learn, because you're not coming back here. And she educated me better than school. And women in prison taught me how to write policy. Like, women in prison gave me education. They taught me how to speak foreign languages. Like, it was, I said, oh,
Wow.
this is crazy. They're like, because you can't come back here.
Amen.
And the way people poured into me in prison, people did not pour into me free. And they had more recesses and better access. And that was crazy for me.
And breaking that generational
breaking,
cycle.
And the fact that they talked to me about, I'm a kid, I'm not thinking about having children or any of the above, but they poured it in. And I remember getting ready to leave prison, and they said, you owe us, and you can't come back here. And we have invested enough. And I remember Bernice telling me, she said, you owe your mama, because you don't know what your mama did to get you here. She said, baby, because she was shackled and chained giving birth. She said, they don't shackle and chain animals. And I had to ponder, and she was explaining to me, she said, baby, they don't give black women Betty Ford Clinic. It was a war on drugs, and they gave us prison. And in that moment, I had to forgive my mother. I said, because my mother was an addict. And addicts didn't have options.
But even as an addict, she deserved way better than that. I cannot even
absolutely
imagine as a mother being shackled and chained while I'm giving birth.
Yeah. You know, and I was like, she had options. Like, there were still abortions happening in 1978. She had options, especially in prison. And she did it anyway. I said, oh, in that moment, in that clarity, I said, I will run for this lady until I die, because if she did nothing but give me birth, she did the ultimate for me.
And you know, you talk about post-traumatic prison disorder. Explain to us what it is and why it's so critical to address.
Everybody can deal with their ACEs. Everybody can deal with their adverse childhood experiences. He talks about being raised in the crack house with the rats. He was okay in the crack house with the rats. He knew what that was. He was okay being born wherever he was. He knew what that was, right? I lived in a house in foster care. I knew what that was. I was okay in that terrain. But prison, it's no assimilation that can get you ready. I wasn't ready. 7 women in a room with me, and me, no. This is crazy. And the trauma of prison, everybody's not going home. People are gonna die on the yard. and I wasn't ready. And people are going to get raped in the building. People are going to get pregnant in the building. Like, this is crazy. Y'all got more going on here than the streets. People are going to die from overdoses. And I'm like, I have nowhere to go. But I'm a kid. And I can't even process this. Because you got the warden and the counselors telling you, if you tell anybody, you might not make it home. So you're definitely not getting on the phone telling those stories. Mm-hmm. And it's just not okay. And I had to just suck it up. And I'm trying to process what I'm watching. And this is just not a good movie. And I used to tell Bernice, like, I didn't know. I used to cry. I used to cry in her lap more nights than I could remember. And she would sing Jesus Loves Me until I fell asleep. And I'm like, and she said, you know, like, little baby, you can't go outside today. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I'm like, I'm in a prison inside a prison inside a prison. But the only thing that was being dilapidated was my mind. And the people, literally, I went to the psychiatrist once. When I got out of prison and I got to parole, they had 6,000 words on paper that said I was a deaf mute, I was retarded, and I was crazy. I went in there talking. But the paperwork, so the lady, when I got to parole, they was just looking at me crazy. They was like, get the retard out of here. I didn't even say nothing because you telling my story. But you know what? The label made it easy because they didn't have no expectation. It was like, just go. Wow. And I knew in that moment, I said, I can use this as my blessing or my curse. But it took me 7 years to reverse the damage of those 6,000 words. Because who's hiring me?
Yeah.
I'm already the bank robber. Now you're saying all the rest of the stuff. Where am I getting a job?
Yeah.
And so I came home and I had took my stove outside. And nobody asked me, was I okay? They just said I was crazy and they talked about me. I cooked with a stinger the first half a year I was home. I cooked with a stinger in the garbage can with a trash bag.
Wow. And
they looked at me and like, what are you doing? But I said, how do I tell them that I'm in prison and a person owed a drug debt? And I went to prison where you could still smoke. And the lifer was from MS-13 and she smoked a cigarette and she flicked it on her. And it caught on fire. And we went to solitary. And I was saying, I see dead people. And they said, if you say that again, you're never going home. So I stopped talking. Because I want to go home. And I had took my mattress and put it underneath the third bunk on the bottom. And I was small enough I could still fit. So they would be like W76337 and I would just hold out a body part. And cause now I'm just terrified. And now I'm having night terrors and I'm having all type of stuff that's happening. And all they offer me is psychotropic drugs. And so one of the ladies said, if you take that medication, you will never be normal again. And I watched the people take the medication and they were stuttering and they didn't know their names and they were drooling and defecating. Wow. I watched these people go from normal to mentally ill from the medication. And I said, oh. So I just perpetually had bad dreams and trauma and it didn't get better. And I got home and it didn't get better. And I realized
How did it get better?
I went back to what I knew. I started riding horses because I realized I couldn't talk to people. Like I went to a therapist and was telling the therapist my problem. She called the police.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm only telling her what happened in prison. And she told me she had to go to the bathroom, and she got up, and when I sat there for a while, the police came in.
What ethnicity was the?
She was white. And the cops, thank God, one was white and one was black, and they were like, what, nothing looks like it's happening in here. And I'm looking, and I'm scared because now I'm petrified. I see cops. And she said, oh my God, do you know what she's saying to me? And they were like, saying to you, is your life in danger? Did she say she's going to kill you? Is she going to harm you? And she said, no, she's telling me that.
Oh my God.
And had they been anybody else on that day, I would have been back in prison. And they actually drove me home. And what's so crazy is
and that's why people are afraid to go to therapy.
And that is why. Oh, I understand why.
And that's very sad. I had a therapist on the show, and she talked about how you have to interview your therapist, basically, because it's somebody you're going to have to spend time with. So you may have to go to 2 or 3 people and figure out who's going to be the best fit for you.
Yeah.
And so, people need therapy.
Yeah. And I think post-traumatic prison disorder is so vital because we don't have post-traumatic stress disorder. We did not go to the military. We don't get the benefits of what they're saying, right? We have our own disorder. And it was caused by prison. Yeah. And prison said it was going to rehabilitate and treat, and it did not do that. They are a liar of their mission statement. And so they created post-traumatic prison disorder for 70 million Americans. And they caused the harm, and they owe the restitution from it.
Yes, yes.
And I'm saying...
And rehabilitation.
And rehabilitation.
Real rehabilitation.
And I'm saying, if you're saying...
Real rehabilitation.
Yeah, and if you're saying that black people lead prison, and we lead all the things, and we're clear, that's not true, because if we're only 13% of the population, we can't lead everything.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for BIPOC therapists. Because if the person doesn't look like me, they can't identify with me. And I need to know they've had trauma too.
Yes.
Because I need to be able to feel safe.
Absolutely.
And I ask 14 days upon incarceration that people are evaluated. But I also ask that medication is the last defense. There are modalities that have nothing to do with Pfizer and Merck pharmaceutical drugs. They are the biggest drug dealer in America, and they are pimping and pandering every prison in this country, and it is unwell. Yeah. I remember getting to prison at 17 and them telling me go to the med line. I had just got my bedroll, and they told me, here's Eliquis to go to bed and Ritalin to wake up. Who's taking this? And do you know how to get a court order not to take medication? Because it's defying prison rules. They want everybody slowing on drugs.
That's very intense and very scary.
Yeah.
And it's a reality for so many people. And thank you for sharing. Marcus, how did your wrongful incarceration shift your perspective on justice and humanity?
Honestly, it was, I remember it felt like a movie when I went into prison. I felt out of place. I didn't want to be bothered with the prison yard conversations. I felt I wasn't, I knew something wasn't right. And in that moment, I felt like how my ancestors must have felt when they was stripped from our land and put at the bottom of ships and brought into foreign land, not even understanding the language. That's how I felt. And I remember speaking out against some injustice, and this is before the hunger strike. This was. We was in the most toxic city in Michigan at the time. It was St. Louis, Michigan. It was labeled like number 10 or 11 most toxic cities in the United States at the time. And so the water smelled like eggs. Sewage. People were dying. They was getting H. pylori, brain cancer, H. pylori. And I remember I filed a complaint, and they started retaliating against me. just kept putting me in like solitary confinement, taking my phone calls, taking this, So finally, so they end up sending me up north. They checked my blood levels. They seen that the water had all my levels up. So they sent me up north. They fixed the damn roads with because of the census, prison gerrymandering. That's what the roads getting fixed at, not in our communities. So I remember they sending us up at north, and they. So I remember going in the chow hall one day, and I smelled maggots, right? Mm. And they started feeding us spoiled food with maggots. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't give us no education. If you had over 3 years in prison, you couldn't get in college, you couldn't get no job training, you couldn't get nothing, you couldn't even get a GED. And I know I'm going home one day, but I'm looking around the yard, and I'm like, y'all okay with this? You know what I mean? And it was just disgusting to me. And so anyway, they started feeding us spoiled food with maggots. So we protested, did a hunger strike. And even though the newspapers only saying it was just about the spoiled food with maggots, but it was about inhumane treatment. It was about a lack of a denial of grievances that we was filing, and a plethora of other human rights issues. But that's the one they pointed out. Mm. But I remember they put all of us in solitary confinement, shot us all over the state of Michigan. And I remember they just, you know what I'm saying, I later found out that in my record, in my documents, they said, keep your foot on his neck. Mm. So everywhere I went, they was putting me in solitary confinement. They was taking my phone calls. And I remember calling home crying to my mother one day, like, Mama, they took all my stuff. They took this. She said, baby, I don't care if they got you in level 5 maximum security and level 1. You in prison. Mm. And when she said that, you got to understand, I'm claustrophobic. Mm. So as someone claustrophobic that was locked in the trunk at 3 years old by my uncle, I've been claustrophobic. But now imagine being in solitary confinement. So that moment, like what you shared, where you went back to where you was in the first grade in the kindergarten, I had to mentally leave my body in order to survive that. Mm-hmm. Because if I would have stayed in my body, I'd have went crazy. I mean, so I had to leave my body and what they call it, out-of-body experiences, and I'm looking at myself laying on there suffering, and I'm watching my body being oppressed. And it was just like, this just can't be normal. So I remember getting started studying the Constitution. And that's when I realized what the Constitution said, that we abolishing slavery except for punishment for a crime. That was in the Michigan's Constitution, Article 1, subsection 9. So I'm like, damn, Michigan still got slavery in our country. I'm a slave. So I'm panicking now. I'm a slave. I'm a slave. I'm panicking. And I'm like, so I'm showing somebody else on the yard, and oh man, it's nothing. I said, let me go check out the 13th Amendment. So I get to looking, seen it, same in third. And that's when I realized where the 13th Amendment became. It wasn't to free slaves, it was to legalize it if you could be a victim of a crime. Then I started understanding black codes. Then I went all the way back to the Dred Scott ruling and seeing that it was never challenged. So now then I started understanding the systems. Like, okay, well, this really was designed for what we have today. Mm-hmm. And so I vowed that when I get out, I'm going to fight that system. Prior to coming home, I lost my mother and to brain cancer. And to your point, when you're talking about post-traumatic prison disorder, I couldn't feel that. Because in order to survive prison, I had to shut down emotionally in order to survive. I can see somebody getting stabbed over here, but when I go on my visit, I'm not talking about that. I ain't even supposed to see it. I can see somebody get raped over there, and I got to keep walking. How your day was, Marcus? It was great, Mama. You know what I'm saying? It was it. Because I can't talk about that. You can know somebody about to stab your cellmate, and you just get up and go get something to eat. Y'all just ate together, but he finna die today, and you can't talk about that. You know what I mean? And then, or staff bring a bucket of chicken and pay somebody 2 pieces of chicken, and it's a war on the yard. It's so much stuff that goes on that, that having emotions make you weak. It makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability is dangerous in prison. And so So anyway,
How long did you serve?
I was there 9 years, and so when I came home after being shut down emotionally, it was no system or nothing designed to help me turn those emotions back on. So now, so I can honestly say that my change came later when I came home. All I wanted to do when I got out was fight and get slavery out of the Constitution. You know what I'm saying? Think about healing people that got out, you know what I'm saying, that went through that particular process that I went through. Went to Nevada, we fought and got the slavery bill out of Nevada. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of moved around in that space. But when my change came is somebody offered me a opportunity to heal. And that was the greatest gift. Her name was Leslie Turner from Mass Liberation, Nevada. And she said, brother, I'm gonna take you to Africa. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking it's just a talk. And, you know, I was able to meet Brothers Meach and all of us getting ready to go to Africa. And when I went to that slave dungeon, I remember it felt like I was back in solitary confinement. It just looked the same. Like, and I remember going through there and I can hear the people crying, saying, just don't forget about us. And I remember people telling me that when I left prison, don't forget about me. So for a long time, I was organized and angry. And I realized when I went through my process and my healing, I'm still healing, but now that I'm able to feel, because I realized if you can't feel yourself, you can't feel others. And so after going through that process of healing, I realized and I understand now that at first I could have been bleeding on people that I was trying to lead because of organized and angry, and I didn't want to bleed on people. I want people to understand that this is the process. It starts here, and we can't get to liberation if we can't first free all of us. Because if we ain't nobody free until black women are free, period. And if we can't free black women, then we can't free none of us. You know what I'm saying? And we don't understand that. If we don't understand that these systems wasn't designed for us, then it's not going to be a way that we can actually go back and have a solution to fix it. So, which is why I realized we had to get slavery out of our Constitution first in order to start the process of humanizing. And if we understand that you can't rehabilitate nobody who has never been rehabilitated in the first place, so now we know that that's not what Michigan Department of Corrections was designed for. Because if I never had the tools to be successful before I came to prison, you ain't re-giving them to me. You know what I mean? And that's what rehabilitation really is. So we can't say Department of Corrections, because if you correct something, you correct it and it's okay, but why is it still packed? And why do we spend so much money to continue that cycle and that system going?
Because it's a business.
It's
the biggest business. The prison system in the U.S. is bigger than anywhere else.
Yes.
And it started when slavery in this country ended.
But here's the thing. I think we get caught up in the conversations of trying to, like what we did with black and white and all the different races and colors, to say this color is this and this, to try to put people in groups. Chattel slavery is still chattel slavery. It's not modern, it's not this, it's still slavery. And no matter how much they try to beautify it, it's just always going to be. And so when we understand how then that capitalism has always taken over, has always outweighed human rights and and humanity in anybody, then you know that these systems weren't designed for neither one of them. Because in Norway, they don't have bars. No. In Norway, they had the lowest recidivism rate in the world, and they don't have bars. No human being is designed to be behind bars. No. Not a child, not an adult. And so, in my closing, again, that's what my documentary is about. No exception to the promise. You know what I'm saying? If you promise to free me, then shouldn't be an exception to it. If all of us ain't free, ain't none of us free. Injustice anywhere, there's injustice everywhere. But when we're talking about in education, and this is how it showed up in Pontiac recently. We have, first I got to start with this. Black women are the most attacked person all over the world.
Absolutely.
And we have to understand that. So let me tell you how that and mental health shows up in a young mother in Pontiac. So we had children that was living in this place with this mother over 5 years. This resident hadn't even been registered for 8 years and it was under HUD. So this mother abandoned her children. You know, so she made sure they ate, but she left them. They hadn't been in school or none of that. But yet they was being counted for being in school. No truancy officers called, which would have triggered CPS, which means the CPS didn't come and this and that. So they stayed suffering for 5 years.
Yeah.
You know who they punished for that? The mother. They drug her all over Facebook. They drug her all over everything.
Oh, we saw
what I'm
that,
saying?
yeah.
And I don't know this woman, but I say, y'all asking the wrong questions. What about the system? Because if the system had not have been counting them children being in school, then the CPS would have got involved and they would have protected them children and they wouldn't have suffered that long. But we would rather drag our own sisters and say, yeah, she's a terrible mom, she's a terrible this. You don't even realize she might have a mental illness.
She's going through something.
You know what I'm saying? Your mental illness might show up different from mine. But the system got us designed to demonize and dehumanize our own people. You know what I'm saying? To a point where when they stop, you know what I'm saying, having mental institutions, start building prisons, sending people with mental illnesses to prison, they actually stopped in our communities too. So now, no, you don't have a mental illness, you crazy and you're a terrible mom. So now the whole system is focused on throwing this mother away, millions of dollars bond, but nobody in the education system is an issue.
Nobody in community.
Nobody in code enforcement is an issue.
Nobody in community.
Nobody in the mayor. No, the CPS.
No.
This whole system.
No. There were neighbors.
No, even neighbors.
But I'm saying nobody in community. The first responders was the neighbors.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. But when we talk about this system that was supposed to be designed to protect the best interest of the child.
But I told you that system does not exist because guess what? To get me off of the foster care system, a white 23-year-old social worker came in there. I was 19. She told me she felt like she had been accosted and all she had to do was come to the visiting and they patted her down. She told me they tried to rape her. I giggled. I said, you don't even know what I had to do to come out to talk to you on a Tuesday. So get off my nerves right now, because I don't even want to visit you. And so she told me, we couldn't find you. Well, I've been here. And she said, we can't even get you stop giving a check because we don't know where you are. So y'all been giving a person a check that can't produce the kid. That's crazy.
Go ahead.
But in closing, I was just saying that in order to fix every system that we just talked about today, including our educational system.
And I still have a few more questions for you guys.
Oh, go ahead.
What are the biggest myths people believe about incarceration?
That we're being helped, that the medical is great, that the food is okay, and we're getting helped. And none of those things are true. The food says not fit for human consumption. The resources for education and services are bare minimal to non-existent. And there's no mental health services. There's only psychotropic drugs. And so, and the biggest myth is that people are safe because we're locked up. And they're not.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, one of the myths that I really talk about a lot nowadays that I'm getting older and looking back is that I get tired of people saying, man, prison changed your life. Prison ain't did nothing to me. I changed my life. Because if that's the case, that's the very idea that the system used to send our children there. This'll help change your life. We gotta get out of that mindset that prison gonna do anything except what it's meant to do. And that's incarcerate and house you, warehouse you, dehumanize you, etc., enslave you. Prison, being in prison allowed me the opportunity to find myself. That's the best thing that prison, being in prison did, not prison did, but being in prison did, it allowed me the opportunity to find myself, talk to myself, even when they say I was crazy for answering myself. It makes sense to me.
We talked a little bit about rehabilitation. Why is rehabilitation often missing from the prison system?
Because it wasn't designed to rehabilitate. It was designed for slave labor. Prison was never, first, again, we use the word rehabilitation because it's a sexy word. But you can't rehabilitate someone who has never been rehabilitated in the first place unless you habilitating them to be prison workers. Now, if you just want me to be a prison worker and just make your license plates, we kick out 12,000 license plates every day. We ain't got to pay nobody $40 an hour to do. We can get it done for free in prison. So that if that's the habilitation and to silence yourself and let yourself be dehumanized and treated inhumane and silenced, then yeah, you've habilitated me and then rehabilitated me when I went home, because the same things continue to happen when I get denied housing, education, jobs, and things like that. I'm still being silenced when conversations of policy come out. You don't ask me how it affects me. So yeah, that would be a rehabilitation at that point because you've habilitated me to shut up in prison. So, but in all actuality, prison was only designed to dehumanize and kick out labor.
But also, back in the 90s, there was a debate amongst the prison heads, the dictators. There was a debate about the very word rehabilitate and corrections. It's a reason why it's not called the Department of Rehabilitation, because you can't rehabilitate someone to a state that they never was at in the first place. Now, they talked about corrections. You can correct somebody's behavior because you can say, Tiffany, don't walk to the left when you get behind and walk to the right. And then the next time I see you, you walking to the right. You done corrected something, right? So now you take this person who sold drugs, found himself or herself in prison, and now they no longer sell drugs. The behavior has been corrected, right? So that was the big debate in the 90s, was about rehabilitation and corrections. And correction won out. But it didn't win out because the Department of Corrections was correcting behavior. Again, it was because people grew up and grew out of some of the behavioral patterns that landed them in prison in the first place. So they tend to take all the acclaim and the pats on the back. They don't deserve none of it. We deserve it because we are out here right now, we are the community. We are the community that was once counted out and now being counted on. People want to ask us, do you know the answer to this question? Do you know what we should do about this? Do you know what we should do about that? That means that we always have held value, but now our value is now coming to the forefront to the extent that politicians, doctors, psychologists, etc. are saying, they coming to us and saying, we need your input. We need you at this table. And these are the messages that we share with those brothers and these families out here who think that prison is changing. My son, prison changed my son. He's doing better now. No, it didn't. Nope, we want to dispel that myth. We want our families, the brothers and sisters in prison, don't give prison your power. Don't give Department of Corrections your power. We have the power to change, make, and mold our conditions to how we want them to be, our future to how we want them to be. And that's what we do when we come together like this. And in the ecosystem that we exist in, that grassroots nature that we operate from, that's what we do in this grassroots organization.
As we continue this powerful conversation, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors who make this platform possible. When we come back, we're diving deeper into healing solutions and what it truly takes to break generational cycles. Stay with us.
People ask all the time, who the heck is low-cost airlines? Well, we're not just one airline. When you're talking to us, you're talking to everyone. We are the discount supermarket for all airline tickets. Plus, we have all the airlines and always have the best prices. American, Delta, United, plus all the specialized international airlines, and a lot more. And we make it easy. We guarantee you'll talk to a live human in 60 seconds. You can have the rates you need and have your trip booked in 5 minutes. Now, how cool is that? And remember, when you're talking to us, it's like talking to every single airline available with one fast phone call. All you need to do is call and find the best prices to fly wherever it is you want to go. So are you ready? Call Low Cost Airlines right now.
Call 855-662-0261. That's 855-662-0261. Again, 855-662-0261.
Hi, I'm the tax lady. Do you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS? Then listen carefully. You may be able to pay the IRS less and save thousands of dollars because right now there are special government tax programs for people like you who owe the IRS. We can even help you if you have unfiled tax returns. And if you qualify, you'll pay less money to the IRS or state. Stop worrying about wage garnishments and bank levies and call the number on the screen right now for a free tax review. We know what you're going through. We help good people like you every day pay the IRS or state less taxes all the time. If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, call now for your free, no-obligation consultation with a tax professional. Don't fight the IRS alone. Call the Tax Ladies team today.
Call the tax lady at 877-335-7471. Call now.
How'd it happen?
She showed up dead on arrival.
This never gets easier.
It does when you call CarShield before your car breaks down. Look at these prices. The camshaft, transmission, engine.
Don't people know? A plan through CarShield could protect up to 5,000 parts and systems.
You hate to see it.
An out-of-warranty car is going to break down eventually.
Right, which is why they need a plan through CarShield.
Best of all, you'll get access to CarShield's concierge service, who can even help you find a mechanic near you.
They're notifying the family.
Poor guy. He doesn't even know what's coming.
Another victim of senselessly expensive repair bills. Can't save them all.
But we can keep trying. Didn't have to end this way. If he'd have just called CarShield before his car broke down.
Exactly.
CarShield has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau and was voted America's most trusted auto protection company. It's time to call CarShield now. Call 800-636-1039.
Welcome back to Thrive and Rise with Tiffany. Let's move from awareness to action. How do we help returning citizens rebuild identity, confidence, and stability?
I will, first of all, and I'm gonna be very short when I say this. One of the problems that I know that we face as men, especially men of African descent, is that we scared to say we've been hurt. Mm-hmm. A lot of us we done suffered molestation, rape, verbal, psychological abuse, and we scared to claim it because the people who's looking at us will look at us as less than. So because we're so scared to acknowledge that we've been hurt, we're not trying to take a process of healing, because we refuse to even acknowledge we've been hurt. That's another reason why, and I'm saying this not to plug the book, but that's another reason why I had wrote the book, because I realized that a lot of my life, I was scared. I had to play tough. I couldn't admit that I had been hurt. I couldn't admit it because it hurted me just to admit and think of myself as being weak. When showing that vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. And so that's why I put together my program, my book, my everything. For us brothers and sisters out here, it's about us, but it's about the whole as well. So we could understand that the pathway to healing is first acknowledging that we've been hurt.
What does forgiveness of self and others look like in this journey?
Forgiveness looks like healing the broken 9-year-old. Forgiveness looks like healing the broken 15-year-old. Healing looks like forgiving all the people who hurt you. And I used to hear the cliche, it's not for them, it's for you. And the older I got, I realized it is for us, because I have a 24-year-old son, and I tell my son all the time, I apologize because I was raising you from a 15-year-old broken space as a 20-something-year-old mama, emotionally fragmented, straight out of prison having a kid. That's crazy, because I didn't heal me enough to be having a human. And so my children talk about me, and it's like they got two different parents because they did not experience the same person. And my daughter came on this side of healing, and my son came on fractured and broken. And I think healing and forgiveness is work. Like, I tell people, the moment I decided to heal in real life, I tried to kill myself. I tried to commit suicide because healing hurts. My hashtag for post-traumatic prison disorder is healing hurts like birthing a baby with no anesthetic. You just gotta go through it. Healing doesn't feel good. And humans like to feel good. And so nobody wants it's work to heal. It is work to heal. And I'm like, I'll be healing till I die. And there are moments when healing takes me out. Like, healing is not a joyful journey. I hear these people say, well, we're going on a healing journey. Y'all bullshitting. Because healing is crazy. Because healing, the monsters and the demons got to come out the closets.
It's not easy work. And like Marcus said, you cut those emotions off, you disassociate. And then when you're healing, you're feeling everything that you have cut off, everything that you've been running from. You have to look at the mirror at yourself. You have to think about everything that everybody has done that has affected you. It is not easy. All of those things come rushing in, but on the other side of that healing.
On the other side of healing, I can be a whole mother. On the other side of healing, I make sure that my children will never be me. On the other side of healing, I get to have functional relationships with humans that I did not have. Like, I can tell people my husband was horrible. I probably wasn't the best wife in real life because I'm still broken. And I'm still telling you, and you don't hear me, but now I'm going to show you my prison behaviors. And I'm like, this is not going to work out. And I don't know, I know that a lot of people coming from incarceration have interpersonal relationship issues, and we have relationship problems. Like, we're just not the best people to be in relationship with, and that's honest, unless we work on ourselves. And people just don't want to be honest. Like, I stopped dating people for a while, and people said, why? I said, because I'm going to hurt you, because I'm not healed, and I'm going to drag you in all my mess, and I really don't care. Because I'm broken and I'm hurt. So you could hurt too. And I had to really sit with that. And I was like, oh, this is not good. And when I find myself slipping into bad behaviors and old patterns, I'm like, God will always send me somebody that can check me for my behavior. And I'm like, oh. And I have to eat it and go recorrect it. And it hurts.
But that's a level of self-awareness that a lot of people don't have. So that's a great thing. That's the first step right there.
Absolutely.
Marcus, I'm going to ask you this question and then we'll go into rapid fire. How do we create systems that see people as human, not statistics?
First we have to get slavery out of our Constitution. That's the first thing. You can't reform any system whose genesis is slavery. And then to the second part of the question was to what?
to see people as human and not statistics.
Oh, not statistics. Yeah. First we gotta take slavery out of the Constitution first and start the process of humanizing people. Therefore, the policies, the harmful policies that we fighting against today, you can start to roll them back. We can start the educational system. We can start to see humanity in our children. We can start, we can reimagine public health and safety that's rooted in care over punishment. And that's where it has to start from. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's the only way that we can do that.
All right, now we're about to shift gears a little. This is my rapid fire round where I'm going to give you 2 options and you've got to pick one. No overthinking, no long explanations, just your first instinct. This is where we see the real you. Are you ready?
Ready.
Absolutely.
We'll go from left to right. We'll start with Demetrius. System or self?
Self.
Same question. System or self? Rapid fire.
Self.
System or self?
I've had to go with self.
Punishment or rehabilitation?
Rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation.
Habilitation.
Awareness or action?
Action.
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 Policy or people?
People.
Policy.
People.
Survival or healing?
Healing.
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 Justice or revenge?
Justice.
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 Truth or comfort?
Truth.
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 Reform or revolution?
Revolution.
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 Pain or purpose?
Purpose.
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 Silence or voice?
Voice.
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 Fear or courage?
Courage.
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 Broken or rebuilding?
Rebuilding.
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 Community or isolation?
Community.
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 Labels or identity?
Identity.
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 Second chances or judgment?
Second chances.
Second chances.
Second chances.
Power or oppression?
Power.
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 Prevention or punishment?
Prevention.
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 Healing or hiding?
Healing.
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 Legacy or limitation?
Legacy.
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 All right, last one, and you can't pass on this one. Justice is, finish the sentence.
Justice is seeing yourself first as someone important and being able to see others the same.
Justice is.
Justice is until we're all free. Justice is liberation for my mother. Justice is liberation for my siblings. Justice is liberation for 5 generations of incarceration. Justice is the legacy that I leave behind.
Justice is the liberation of all mankind.
Listen, y'all felt that. That right there, that's the heart behind the work. That's the why behind the fight. As we close out this conversation, I want you to sit with this for a moment. The pipeline we talked about today, it's real, but it's not unbreakable. Because systems may be designed a certain way, but people have the power to redesign outcomes. What we heard today from Demetrius Knuckles, L., Shawanna Vaughn, and Marcus Kelly is more than testimony, it's transformation. It's proof that even when the system tries to define you, you still have the power to redefine yourself. But let's be clear, this is bigger than individual stories. This is about how we show up for our youth, how we respond to trauma, how we build systems that heal instead of harm, because every child deserves support, not surveillance. Every voice deserves to be heard, not silenced. And every life deserves opportunity, not a predetermined path. So the question isn't just what's wrong with the system. The real question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to stay comfortable, or are we going to get committed? Committed to mentoring, committed to advocacy, committed to seeing people, not labels. Because breaking the pipeline doesn't start in policy alone. It starts in people. It starts with awareness. It grows through action, and it is sustained through community. So as you leave this episode, I challenge you, be the interruption, be the voice, be the change, because the next generation is watching, and they're depending on us to get this right. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Thrive and Rise with Tiffany. If this conversation challenged your perspective, good, because growth doesn't happen in comfort. If it opened your eyes, even better, because awareness is the first step to change. And if it moved you to action, then this episode did exactly what it was meant to do, to continue your journey of awareness, healing, and leadership. Explore the Know Thyself book series, because understanding yourself is the foundation for transforming the world around you. If this episode impacted you, drop a bicep in the comments and tell us, what part of the system do you think needs to change first? Like, share, and subscribe, because voices like these don't just deserve to be heard, they deserve to be amplified. And as always, keep thriving with Tiffany.